Thief! 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 Somebody help! Thief! Thief!
The doctor's words, "He will live, but he needs time," kept echoing in my head as dawn smudged the horizon with gray. My baby, Iamade, slept warm against my chest. The corridor TV murmured a preacher's early morning sermon, to no one in particular. I stared at the ceiling tiles and thought about Rose. Envy is a quiet knife. It doesn't flash, it glints. I didn't see it when we were children. I only felt the sting later, when I realized every smile she gave me had a seam of hurt stitched inside it. We were never raised as enemies. Not exactly. We were raised as competitors by circumstance. Our father, Baba, was a proud man, a tailor whose hands could coax elegance from stubborn fabric. He loved us both, he said. But love distributed unevenly is a drought disguised as rain. Rose's mother, Mama Edohan, lived at the back of the compound. My own mother stayed in the main house with Baba. It wasn't that he loved my mother more, he insisted. It was logistics, money, a promise he'd made before Rose was born. Explanations were grown-ups' balm. Children only saw doors that closed and rooms they weren't invited into. Rose learned early to knock hard. One memory returns to me whenever I think of what followed. I was 9, she 11. A Saturday market day, the sun hot as pepper. Baba bought me a second-hand storybook from a roadside stall, The Girl Who Found Water. He gave Rose a packet of hair ribbons, beautiful and cheap. I remember hugging the book to my chest and feeling my own heart beat against it. Rose stared at her ribbons, glossy and bright. That night, I found my book under the kitchen firebox, edges singed. When I cried, Rose shook her head. "Maybe you dropped it," she said softly. Then, almost kindly, "You shouldn't leave things lying around." Years later, I would think, she couldn't bear to see me happy with something that had been chosen just for me. But we grew, and we learned to laugh together. We shared chores, small gossip recipes. We even whispered to each other in the night, when rain hammered zinc and rats scratched at the ceiling. There were moments of real sisterhood. When Baba had a malaria spell, Rose stayed up to sponge his forehead. When my first period came, she put a pot of water on the stove and told me, "It's just your body saying you're a woman. It's not a curse." She pressed a folded cloth into my hand and showed me how to breathe through cramps. We were not enemies. We were complicated. The fracture widened in adulthood, quietly, then suddenly. I found work at a small logistics firm. Rose opened a provisions shop near the junction, Mama Rose's. She was good at it. Her ledger was neat, her smile persuasive. She could turn a slow afternoon into profit, selling biscuits nobody meant to buy. But credit is a trickster. It eats from the back. She kept long lists of names, extended grace to customers who promised tomorrow. And then tomorrow ran away. Suppliers pressed her for payment. Rent rose. Her boyfriend, some man who wore expensive cologne and a diamond that might have been glass, started missing visits and answering calls with tired voices. The day he left her, she came to my one-room apartment, sat on the edge of my bed, and folded into herself like a paper boat in a storm. "What did I do wrong?" she asked. "Nothing," I said, holding her. "You loved a man who could not hold water. That's not your fault." She cried into my shoulder. I remember making her tea. I remember thinking we would find our way through, together. Weeks later, Ifme walked into my life with his quiet umbrella and his stubborn optimism, and something in Rose's eyes shuddered. She didn't say much, but she watched. Our wedding was small. Baba danced until sweat soaked his buba. My mother hummed a praise song as she pinned my veil. Rose came late and left early. She hugged me, quick and hard, and whispered, "Be wise, Lara. Men change when chairs become sofas." I laughed then, because I thought it was a joke wrapped in an old auntie proverb. Maybe it was a warning couched in love. Maybe it was a prophecy from a wound. Then came the waiting years. 6 of them, each the length of a decade. And in those years, envy found purchase. Not only in Rose. Aunties murmured. Uncles stroked beards. My mother's prayers lengthened and grew sharp edges. Now and then, Rose would bring yam or fruit, drop them on my table and say, "Don't mind people. God is slow, but he is sure." Her words were soft, but her eyes skimmed our kitchen shelves, counting. When my husband got a steady contract and bought us a small generator, she ran her palm along the metal and smiled a little too long. "Money looks good on people," she said. "And on you, too," I replied, because it was true. When Rose prospered, she glowed. But prosperity and peace are different fruits. Only one sweetens the tongue. After Iamade came, peace found us in small doses. Milk-drunk naps, whispered thanks, the squeak of brand new diapers at 2 a.m. I thought Rose would share our joy. She came to the hospital with a half smile and a plastic bag of oranges. She touched my son's cheek and said, "He looks like Baba." Then she looked at my stitched belly and added, "C-section leaves marks that don't fade." "It's okay," I said, brushing my fingers over the fresh line that was both scar and him. "I'll take the mark." She looked away. In the weeks that followed, I learned later, her debts tightened. A supplier threatened court. A landlord threatened locks. 2 long-term customers moved away without paying. And my laughter, that light, tired, grateful sound, I suspect it grated. Happiness can be loud, even when it whispers. The morning my husband left for milk and diapers, Rose had already decided to make an example of someone. This I learned later from the police, and from a boy who sometimes carried crates for her. Auntie said, "Let me watch for that man." He told the officers, half proud, half terrified. She said if he touched anything, "We will hold him." She said people will gather if we shout. He had seen my husband before. Everyone knew my husband's face. In a small area, even those who keep to themselves cannot hide their names. "He didn't steal," the boy said, his voice shaking. "He put money on the table and picked the milk. He waited for change. Mummy Rose asked him to sit, said she will bring the change. Then she started shouting thief. And people came. I was afraid. At the station, hearing this, I went cold as water. I closed my eyes and swallowed. I could see Rose, quick thinking, anger braided with fear. Fear of losing face, of losing everything. Fear can make a person set fire to another just to see light. But that morning, before all of that, I sat by my husband's bed as he slept, his breath a careful thread. I watched the rise and fall of bandages, the hang of IV lines. I tried to gather my mind for what came next. A female officer. Sergeant Kelechi came softly to my side with a paper cup of tea. "Your husband is brave," she said. "He covered his face when they lit the match. That's what saved his eyes." I nodded, grateful for any small mercy. "We've taken statements," she continued. "We have 2 men, 1 woman, and your stepsister." My throat tightened around the word. She lied. Kelechi's jaw set. "We'll let the court name it, but we will not let it be nothing." I wanted to ask why. I wanted Kelechi to give me a tidy reason I could fold into a drawer. Instead, I poured my own answer into the silence. Every half-remembered slight, every glittering envy laugh, every time Rose turned her face away from my joy as if it were too bright. The first time, Baba divided land behind the family house. He gave Rose and me adjoining plots. She built a shop first, and I, who was slower, more careful, planted cassava and okra. I didn't know that the boundary line carried an old argument between our mothers. Whose child had the stronger claim? Whose patience had earned more? Lines drawn by mothers are etched into daughters' bones. By the time we learned the story, we were already walking its edges. "Officer," I said at last, "Rose and I, we are not strangers." But she wanted to wound me where it would bleed the most. Kelechi's gaze softened. "Family wounds always bleed more." The police called it incitement. That tidy word sat poorly in my mouth. What I saw on the street had been a storm. People hungry for spectacle, grabbing sticks and accusations as if they were cutlasses. One woman, the same one who had told me to think of my C-section scar, came to the station of her own will to give a statement. I said, "Leave the man." She told the desk officer, eyes lowered. But they didn't hear. The shout was too loud. And the woman that owns the shop, she was saying, I saw him. He wanted to carry milk without paying." She was crying. People believed tears. People believe performance more than truth. It is one of the oldest tragedies. In the days that followed, my mother came to the hospital with soup wrapped in towels to keep it warm. She would not say Rose's name. Baba came once, sat by the bed, and stared at the tiled floor for a long time. His hands trembled on his knees. When he finally spoke, his voice was shredded. "I failed," he whispered. "You didn't," I said quickly, "because fathers don't know what to do with blame. It doesn't fit their hands. I should have held you both tighter," he continued. "I should have learned how to divide without breaking." I took his hand, old and veined. "Baba, the world is big. People choose what they carry." He nodded, but his eyes drifted. I wondered where he went when he looked like that. Back to a younger self. Perhaps before 2 wives and 2 daughters, and a house with doors that clicked shut at night, leaving one side warm, and the other side listening to the rain alone. When the police finally let me see Rose at the station, she didn't look at me immediately. She kept her gaze on a stain on the floor.
Why?
Everything I build falls. Everything you touch rises.
You think my life is a straight line? You think 6 years of waiting didn't break me? You think nights bent over a Bible, asking God if he had forgotten my name, felt like rising?
I see what I see. You and your husband, people love you. They greet you. They bring you fish from the river. When I pass, mouths bend. The landlord counts my breath. The supplier tallies my days. I needed people to remember they can fear me.
So you poured fuel on my husband's body to buy yourself fear.
I didn't light the match. What do you want from me now? I am already in chains in people's eyes.
I want truth. And I want you to carry what you did, not me.
Truth, huh? Truth is that Baba loved your mother more.
We are not our parents' unfinished fights. We can be new.
Can we? Look at us. I will tell the court what happened.
Thank you.
Not because you asked, because I am tired. Don't thank me yet. The truth can still burn.
For a second, I saw the girl at the market, holding ribbons she didn't ask for, watching a book in my arms, like a doorway she would never walk through. And beneath the jealousy and the bitterness and the fresh crime, I saw something else. A woman terrified of becoming small enough to disappear. The world shrinks women like her. It eats their efforts and spits out receipts. On the third morning, a plainclothes investigator arrived with a small laptop. He showed me what he'd gathered. A grainy CCTV clip from a neighboring shop that spilled into the frontage of Mama Rose's kiosk. It didn't catch the accusation itself. The camera angle was bad, but it caught the before and the after. It showed my husband placing money on the counter. It showed him waiting. It showed a blur of bodies rushing from the road as a woman's mouth opened in a shout we could not hear. It showed hands, too many hands. Will this be enough? I asked. It will help, he said. And the boy's statement. And the woman's. Cases like this, he stopped, bit the inside of his cheek. They are heavy. I nodded. I know. He closed the laptop. Prepare yourself, he said gently. Courtrooms are not hospitals. Pain is not balm there. It is evidence. That night, I sat by my husband, who slept fitfully, and I wrote a letter to God. I listed my grievances like a market woman counting beans. Father's silences, mother's lines, sister's small violences, a crowd's mad hunger, a match struck by a stranger. Then I listed mercies, a siren in time, a baby who breathed, a witness who spoke, a sister's ribboned head, bending at last toward truth. Between the two lists, I placed our names. My baby gave a sleepy sigh, as if practicing the shape of tomorrow. We would go to court, we would speak, we would walk through fire again. This time with witnesses and laws and names. And maybe, just maybe, when it ended, we would find water.